My whole thing about fauvism started in 1990 when I went to the faux show of 152 paintings of fauve art. It changed my life. It changed my world because of how they painted. I'd never seen anything like that in person before. And I remember seeing my first Matisse and my first Derain there. And I love what Derain said about painting. He says, I paint with dynamite. And that was that bright, beautiful color that he used. And Matisse was, that's why I use a lot of the dots in my life work. My latest work is because of his love and his fascination with Syrah. And he had a way of using the dash instead of a dot. So I wanted to play with the dots for a while and see what had happened in a fauvish attitude. The thing about fauvism that is the most important to me is these 5 ways of looking at fauvism. This is Brock. Now you'll notice it has no depth of field. And this is one of the secrets between fauvism, is there was no depth of field to it. And it's everyday, it's an everyday scene. And they always wanted everyday scene and everyday people that they would run into and they would paint. It was like this personal journey for them. And the personal journey was also the picture, the colors that they picked because of color memory and color thought. You can see that he really felt pastel about this place. It was, you know, warm and cozy, and it was probably the backyard, and he's having a cup of coffee or something, looking at it. And now here's Derain, the dynamite guy. He said it was painting like dynamite. Now you'll notice that there's no depth of the surface. It's all kind of flat. And what he used is with the colors are when you have blues, purples, and greens, they recede. Yellows, reds, and oranges come forward. And this is one of the basic formulas of fauvism. So anytime that you wanted to push something back on a face or something, you used a deeper, rich color. You'll notice that the bridge would be considered the ambiguity here because it's dark. And then you have the lighter green, but they're showing distance. And then you have that bright sky. So he's moving back and forth through this wonderful thing. And then the simplification of things into its least, so the composition is everything, and it's less sympathetic to the subject matter itself. And this was such an explosion. And when you see these in person, they just knock you out, really. This is, yeah, this is one of Derain's. Now, notice how he's pushing the with the blues. He's pushing everything back, and then all of a sudden he reverses it where the light kind of comes around everything and makes it, gives it depth, even though there is no depth to the painting. They did not want depth. They wanted this emotional feeling. And you can see that he probably did this at night. And that's where you get that reflective light behind the items. And, but you can see him playing with color, playing like that brightness. See the brightness he has in that piece behind the blue vase on the left side. He's pushed that back against that. And then what he's doing is the reverse of it. He's actually pushing the dark on the light, forcing the light back. So he's playing a little game here. They always were experimenting. They were always experimenting. Okay. Kirchner. Now, this is the attitude of that everydayness. This is a girl that he used constantly. And you know, he notice the flatness of the whole thing. There is no depth, but there's only composition. And now the composition things. Now, here's the lightness of the girl and the lightness of that. And the depth that he uses in the blue behind that T-shaped blue is actually pushing that figure forward where nothing else would be pushing that figure forward. So he designs, instead of being all flat color, he would put dark behind the character. And then by using color, no shadow. If they use shadow, they used shadow as a shape, not a shadow. And that's what he's playing with here. And this is one of Kirchner's. This is the German expressionist. And they were all involved stealing from each other. So this is what Matisse. Now here's where they're starting to play with these colors. Now notice on the light side of her face here, there's a green side and there's a warm side. The warm side, he's pulling forward by look at the blue-green that he's pushed in the background. That blue-green is pushed in the background to force that face forward. And notice when he uses her dress that she's wearing, it's a warm color. Then because of the composition, he forces on the yellow side, or that stripe down her face. It's a yellow-green. And what he's done is he's balancing the color in it. So it's this always searching, always looking. This is one of his first ones. This was actually done off of a photograph. And once again, they felt you could use the photograph, but you had to explode the color off of it. And using this green line down it was so, when he showed it, it was so unpopular. They thought he was totally out of his mind. Anyway, and there I am. What I wanted to do is a combination. I love the twisting, turning of the trees. And
sorry.
go ahead. Anyway, I wanted to put it all together. This is based on everything that I've been playing with for the last 30 years. And what happens here is, this is my wife's favorite painting. See how I'm using the lights forward, pushing forward with the lights, and then the dark purples and the dark blues, they're receding. So what happens around the figure itself, it's forcing the figure forward, and using the green in the in the body, those are the parts that are laying flat. So once again, there is no shadow. It's just push and pull of color.
Thank you, Frank. That was fabulous. I know that, again, you love the fauves, and through your art and through so many of the people who are painting and showing in the gallery right now, I'm turned on and excited again about fauvism.
I love it. Yeah.
What did they call them? They coined a phrase for the fauves during their era.
Wild beast.
Wild.
Thank you.
What fauve means in French.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
What it was really quickly is they had a fauve show at this place, and they had a famous sculpture in the center of it, Dubier. He is surrounded by fauves, wild beasts, and that's where they got the name.
Oh, you wild beast, Frank, you.
Speaking of Kathy Bergstrom, Kathy, would you like to also talk about your palette choices? Because you have some beautiful bright paintings and soft paintings in the show.
Well, on this same theme of fauvism, if you'll notice, if you go back to Frank's nude, I don't set out with a complete color theory in mind. I have a subject that I want to create from some abstract, whether it's in my head or on a photograph. And I start out with sometimes a neutral background, sometimes a red background, and one of my favorites is a gold sort of leaf background. And I go from there. But the neat thing about brightness in art, and what Frank has done so beautifully in that nude, is what's called halation, where you take a primary color and its two complements and you lay them side by side, and chemically they affect your eye, how you see things. He's done it there in the spine of the nude, not in the spine, well, there too, but where the body meets the blue blanket is blue and its color complement orange. Then you have over here green against yellow. And then let's see, you got red against green, yellow against purple. All of those just vibrate without even trying. And that's really the beauty of playing with color in the Fauvist tradition. And so you can take it to any kind of art. If you want to go bright with color, you want to use a pretty heavily saturated color, but you never want to forget Frank's main theme
Okra.
is value.
Oh, crap.
They have the most bright colors in the world, and if they were all in the same value system and you looked through a cheat sheet, they'd all be gray, and you get that sense from them. It wouldn't be exciting. It would be boring, even though you're looking at primary.
Dave, you're out there. Do you want to talk a little bit about your color choices as well?
Yes. Let's see. Well, one of the comments I always get when people look at how well I've captured the light, and I think as artists, that's really what we try and do. We don't paint things, but we try and capture the effect of light on things. And for a long time, I was working with a fairly, I'm a real believer in underpainting, and I was using a fairly monochromatic underpainting, which was just getting the values down, and I would take it from there. And a while back, I took a workshop with Jacob Aguilar, and we were using vermilion and other really bright colors as underpainting tools. And I really had a good time doing that. So I find myself doing that a lot more, where I'll actually paint either complements under the colors I know I'm be painting, or just playing with a really hot underpainting and seeing what comes of it. And I think it is, it still ends up being fairly similar to what I did, but just has just a little bit of extra brightness to it.
Wonderful.
Okay. Debbie, do you want to comment? You've been teaching a lot with watercolor doodling about the choice of palettes before you start.
Yeah, it's funny, when I was thinking about color and my choices, I have probably 6 different palettes, because I'm also a plein air painter and I paint in watercolor. So for plein air, for years and years, I've used the ultramarine and cobalt blue and burnt sienna and paint very atmospherically. Teaching this class, we're using 8 pigments, the primaries plus neutral tint and burnt sienna. And, we're painting shapes, mainly shapes to doodle into.
You could see everybody.
And with my abstracts, which have been mentored by Frank Minuto recently, I use a lot of black and very little color. So my use of color has definitely evolved depending on the subject matter.
We would like to open up the conversation to everyone who'd like to share.
I'd like to add a little bit to the color palette that Debbie was talking about.
Great, Katharine.
Well, I started out, when I went back to painting seriously about 30 years ago, I had a lot of instruction with the Impressionist movement, the new plein air painters, and their palettes were quite extensive. 22 colors I counted on one of the palettes. And I've learned through the years that the more you can shorten your palette, the more successful your painting will be. And in the great extreme, and I'm sure all of you know about Anders Zorn's palette for the most exquisite skin tones in the world. And he uses 3 colors, and they're boring colors. They're Mars black, yellow ochre, and cadmium red, medium, and white. And he gets an array, an absolute exquisite rainbow array of colors out of those 3. And actually, for myself, since I like to get a little more to the bright side, Mary Wilkerson's palette is one of my favorites, and she uses just the 3 primaries. Anyway, so yeah, Mary Wilkerson's palette is very simple. It's the 3 primaries in cool and the 3 primaries in warm, plus titanium white. And again, you can get a fantastic array of colors. They're more pure. And I want to get back to Dave Wolfram, because I took one of his classes, and I believe it was you, Dave, that told us about how much pure pigment there is in a tube of paint. The more valuable it is, more expensive, but it's heavy. So really quality paint will have a ton of pigment, therefore.
Oh yeah, if you weigh a tube of old Holland paint versus maybe a tube of Grumbacher, the old Holland paint will weigh a lot more because there's a lot more pigment per. I guess there's a measurement they use, but if you looked at a microscopic thing, you would see a lot more pigment and a lot more filler or a lot more binder in the Grumbacher paint.
And by weight, you can tell the value and the quality of it. And that amazed me. So if you want to be cheap, you can really buy better paints, but put some kind of an extender in them if you want to, make them go further. But thank you for that, Dave. That was a great, fun little thing to learn. And that made me understand what quality was all about in paint, the pigment actually in it. So thanks.
Sure.
Kathy. Is there anyone else who'd like to share about how they choose their palette or don't choose their palette ahead of time?
Richard here. I pretty much don't. I was taught by some very good artists, but Sergei Bongard and Sonny Pichapong, Joe Mendez, and they had a formula. I didn't like it, so I threw that away, and I just do whatever I think, and I don't give too much look at what paints are where. I use them all, and I just create it on my canvas.